And hello again. Welcome to the APX podcast. This is your host, Luis Andarcia. And today we have another great guest. This is Coach Marc Mone. He is a USA Triathlon level 1 long course um, uh, coach for the USA Triathlon community. Then he's a member of Team USA. He's a USA Triathlon Ambassador. His company is Tri Coach Marc, which he's been coaching for the last 5 years. He's based in Temecula, California. He's married. He's a father of two. And well, I'll let Marc introduce himself. Just a brief intro, and then we'll jump into all the questions and all the fun conversation that we have ahead. Hi, Marc.
Yeah, hi, Luis. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's been great getting to know you over the years through the sport. Just like many of the friends that I have generated through this sport of triathlon, and it's just been a wonderful experience since I got engaged in triathlon in 1980. So, looking forward to sharing some information with you and your guests.
All right. Well, welcome. I So as usual, I have a skeleton. All our listeners are used to it now, and so it's I have a skeleton of 5 questions, but we can always veer in any direction and just make it as fun and relaxed as possible, and well, fun for our listeners too. So tell me, okay, how did you start? Uh, how did you get into triathlons? And you said, I think you mentioned 1980. So when and how did you get into it? What got you into triathlons?
Well, it was pretty much a grassroots experience. Shortly after graduating from high school, I moved out on my own, and I had a roommate that was a what I would call like a casual athlete. He was a cyclist and runner, and he got me into some basic, running and cycling. I had an opportunity to really to buy my first kind of a road bike, and with his experience, we created a kind of a friendship and a athletic um, start to just getting some workouts in. So that was back in Cardiff, California, where I moved out with this gentleman, and we just kind of created a training program, more of a social experience than anything else. And that led to wanting to be a little bit more competitive and just learn a little bit more about how to be more efficient and effective with my running and cycling at that point.
And okay, can you tell me about that first triathlon? Like, what uh, what was it that first experience? What distance did you do? What choice of gear? And uh, tell me a little bit about that first race.
So from the experience that I gained from my roommate, I wanted to increase my ability to train. So I actually attended Mesa Junior College in San Diego, where I joined the swim team there. And that's where I met the person that really mentored me into the sport. His name is Kurt Madden. So he was my swim coach, and he encouraged me to sign up for my first triathlon, which was Del Mar Days Triathlon in Del Mar, California. Um, at that point in the sport, things were pretty raw. There wasn't a lot of technical gear or um, opportunities to really get the experience that people have now in the sport. In fact, that particular triathlon, the swim was last, so it ended up being run, bike, swim with an ocean swim that was um, can be challenging for people, as you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What were the distances?
The distances, if I can remember, were a mile swim, which was last. The run, I believe, was 10 kilometers, and the bike ride was probably about 15 miles.
Wow. So it wasn't an easy one either.
It wasn't an easy one because I didn't have a lot of experience at that point.
How long was the swim? Like, because you've done already, like, it's a 10K or 6 miles, and it's 15 miles, which is about 30 or 27K, something like that. And then the swim. What was the distance on the swim?
Yeah, the swim was a mile. It was point to point, and
Wow. Okay.
it was challenging because most of the times when the swim is last, there's that propensity for cramping, and I can
You're
remember having,
tired already. Yeah.
yeah, and tired. I can remember having some calf cramps, which were pretty painful.
Okay. And how did you place? What was your time? Do you remember this?
Gosh, no. I mean,
Okay.
I've searched tirelessly for the results,
Okay.
and just can't find anything online. Of course, back in the day when results were available, they were mailed out in postcards. So a lot of times
Yes.
you didn't know what was going on for a couple of weeks.
Right, 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 right. And it was all taken by hand, of course. Yeah, and probably a Timex watch on the other hand. Even I don't even know if the Timex were around at in those days yet.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
remember watches or even wetsuits for sure. We didn't have
definitely.
those, and limited on goggles if you had those for sure.
Right, right. Okay, so what was your like let's start with, so you started running, right? I'm assuming you had, I mean, since you've been with your roommate that was helping you already, in creating this program to get you in athletic shape. Um, what, like, what was your gear choice for running? What was your gear choice for biking? And given the lack of wetsuit and goggles, like, what was your gear choice there? So let's start
Well,
with the run. Yeah.
yeah, in the 80s, the traditional uniform was more or less a Speedo.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
we didn't have much of anything. I mean, like I said, no wetsuits. We didn't have kits or anything like that. No padded uniforms. So it was pretty archaic.
Basic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So more or less people got their hands on a bicycle that they could, you know, find somewhere. I remember having an SR Semi-Pro as my first bicycle, which was more or less a road bike. Tri
Yes.
bikes were not a thing
Around.
at
Yeah.
that point. And I remember having a pair of Nike Waffle Trainer running shoes.
Okay.
So, um, you know, it was more or less whatever you could afford and get your hands on to get you to the starting line.
Nice. Nice. So, I mean, like, this gives newer triathletes an idea of what we did back in the back in the day, when we started doing triathlons. Just, of course, I started in 1992, if I'm, like, I don't remember exactly what was the year. I know it was either 1991 or 1992. So this is already 10 years after. We had already aero bars. The Kestrel was starting to make triathlon bikes. Kestrel, and they were based in Santa Cruz, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know if you remember the first carbon bikes. Do you remember Kestrel at all, the bike brand?
Yeah, I remember Kestrel. I wasn't sure if they were the first ones to come to market with a
A
carbon tread
triathlon
bike.
specific?
Yeah.
Was there someone else that you remember, or
Um, I'm trying to think back. Like you said, it's a little bit hard to to think back on the first triathlon and that experience and what took place. But I think I remember Scott being a an
Yes.
early newcomer to the sport for bicycles.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Kestrel, like you say, and then I had a bike that was actually made in the US. It was called Aegis, um,
Okay.
and it was built in Maine, and it was kind of a one of the pioneer bikes, and it actually was a bike built for 650 wheels versus 700C wheels. So
Right.
that trend came and went.
It lasted probably like a half a decade or something, or 10 years.
Yeah.
Like those, yeah, the 650s. I forget what was the theory behind it. It was less rolling resistance, or not exactly what was the point of that. Anyway, okay, so I'm gonna move on. Okay, from your first triathlon and your background. Um, on or not your background, your first triathlon. Let's move on and fast forward, okay, to your like, how did you stay in the sport? What made you stay in the sport? And tell me about your subsequent races.
Boy, just felt passionate about having an athletic lifestyle, I think. I enjoyed the ability to cross train from one sport to another because while I enjoyed running, it kind of became a little monotonous, thinking about having to run 5 days a week versus being able to break things up with some swimming and cycling. I mean, that was really a lot more en enjoyable, the thought of that experience versus just running all the time. So, um, I was progressing, trying to become more efficient. I lived in San Diego at that time and had the ability to train with several athletes that were far above my ability, but I was able to gain knowledge and experience from guys like Wayne and Wally Buckingham, Emilio DeSoto, Kurt
Yes.
Madden. So some of those guys were also mentors, and we had rides and runs that we would do down in Mission Beach. Um, so it gave me the opportunity to train with people that were stronger than me, which gave the ability for me to elevate my level of fitness.
Right. Right. So let's how many times were you racing during the year? Like, did do several races a year, or like how attached were you to the sport?
I think I was pretty attached. There wasn't a ton of races back in the 80s. There was a lot of swim runs. There was a classic event down in Pacific Beach called Tug's Tavern Swim Run Swim. So I participated in that. And then there was the evolution of the United States Triathlon Series, sponsored by Bud Light. So I traveled and did a lot of those races.
What year are
I,
we talking
I
about now?
This is early 80s to late 80s. So they
Okay.
had the Bud Light series. I traveled up and down the coast of California. I went to nationals in 85 and 86, which was in Hilton Head, uh,
Okay.
in the Carolinas. So
Yes.
from that point, it just triggered more of a passion to stay in the sport and try to be a little more competitive.
Right. Right. And I'm gonna keep like asking more questions about this as we get closer to 2024. Okay, so tell me now, like, how did you move? I didn't ask you, but you've done. Have you done half Ironmans and Ironmans? Is that part of your racing resume, or are you have you done long distance racing?
So I have never done an official 70.3 Ironman. Back in the 80s, there was an event held in Del Mar. It was actually called the Horny Toad Triathlon. There was a running group based out of San Diego called the Hamul Toads, and they facilitated this event. So that was really my only experience at the half distance. Um, and then in 2000, I did my first Ironman distance event, which was the California Ironman. They had it there 2 years at full distance. Um, I did it one
Where
of the
was
years.
this? What was the location for the California Ironman at that time?
It's more or less the same course that they do the 70.3 now.
But hold on, where is the location? Like the California Ironman? I'm
Yeah.
confused.
So it was Oceanside.
In Oceanside. Okay. So it
So
was a full
California.
distance in 2000.
Yeah.
Huh,
So
interesting. Okay. I didn't
it
know
was an
this.
Oceanside Harbor
It's
swim,
nice.
2 laps of the course that's now runs through
Pendleton.
Pendleton.
Yeah.
And then the run was relatively flat, 2 loops to the south of Oceanside Pier.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
So I probably knew this, but forgot. I didn't know that there was a California Ironman before the Sacramento Ironman. So Oceanside was like the original uh, long distance or Ironman distance.
Yes,
And this was in 2000, and you did this one.
I did that one. The year
How was it?
prior,
That's a tough course.
tough course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The year prior, I did the Rock and Roll Marathon. That was my first marathon. I wanted to kind of take a step into that distance for running and just see where my ability was, and just give myself some confidence that I was going to be able to, complete a full distance Ironman, which
Right.
is a
Right.
pass for sure.
Yes. So a lot of athletes go into their first race. Uh, I don't know why some athletes make this choice, but their first race is an Ironman because, and it seems like you did the natural or what I would consider the natural progression. You start with a short distance race and then you start evolving into like doing a longer distance or an Olympic distance, what it's called now, and then or a half Ironman then, and then you graduate from each of these distances, graduate quote unquote air quotes, right? So and you did this natural progression within like this whole history or story of your being in triathlon. What's your thought on following this progression or just signing up straight from couch to Ironman? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the natural progression from, sprint to Ironman should be, get your feet wet in a sprint and Olympic distance race for a year or so, and then, progress to the half distance, 70.3, and then try your hand at a full distance Ironman. I think where it lends itself for somebody to go from no triathlon to an Ironman being their first race would be somebody that's got a more professional athletic background. It would seem to make a little bit more sense that somebody could jump in without a lot of triathlon experience. But it can be risky. I mean, it can be frustrating and demoralizing for somebody to make an attempt at a full distance Ironman as their first race. And if they fail, it could be pretty rough
Yeah.
mentally, physically, and the barrier to back into the entry to the sport could be rough for them.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I consider it that way also. It's like, as you said, well, not necessarily professional from my point of view, but like at least have some athletic background. You've been running for a while, or you've been riding bikes for a while, or you have a swimming background, and you're, I don't know, putting anywhere from 5,000 yards a week in the pool, or 20, 30, 50 miles, or anywhere north of that on the bike a week, or 20, 25, 30 miles a week of running, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to try this thing and put it all together, and jump into an Ironman. But anyway, that's just wondering what was your thought on that. And I that's the way I followed also. Like I did go through that progression. Like I was very shy of upping the distance a lot. And I started doing triathlons in 1991, 1992. And it wasn't only until 2009 when I did my first Ironman. So after, yeah, all those years, I decided, and it was in the late 1990s. Yeah, probably like 8 years after that, I decided to do my first half Ironman. It was a nice, fun race that they used to do in Venezuela, in Isla Margarita. But anyway, um, tell me a little bit about all these medals behind you. What's all the story behind it? Is that's the Norwegian, I'm sorry, or Denmark flag on your right?
Yeah, Sweden and
And
um, um Switzerland.
Switzerland. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Tell me a little bit of that story there. There's, I don't know, like 100 medals back there.
Not quite that many. Those are more or less my prized choice medals. So I followed the passion of triathlon into enjoying being a part of the United States Triathlon Series and Association. I felt it was important to recognize the governing body of the sport, because if the sport was going to grow and I was going to continue to maintain the sport as a lifestyle, that supporting the governing body was going to be important. So that's USA Triathlon. So I was excited about competing at a more competitive level and attending nationals, and being on Team USA. So when you attend a national event in the United States, it gives you the opportunity to be a part of the Team USA and travel internationally. So I've been to 7 world championships over the years. I was fortunate enough to get 2 medals at Worlds in the aquathlon, which is just primarily a swim followed by a run. So I got a second place in Switzerland in 2006, and I
Nice.
got a third place in Penticton, Canada in 2017.
Okay.
So the medals are a representation of some awards for placement and some just finisher medals that are that I'm proud of. So
Nice.
that's kind of what that representation is there.
Perfect. So okay, tell me about the highlights. So you did second place in Switzerland.
Yes,
Okay. And this is in the aquathlon.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about that race. Where was this in Switzerland?
Boy, Switzerland is, Europe in general is just an amazing place to visit.
Yep.
Was my first opportunity to go to Europe, so it was just phenomenal. Um, Being a strong swimmer, I enjoy swimming in different bodies of water, whether they're lakes or oceans, rivers or whatever. But so for this particular event, we swam in Lake Geneva,
Nice.
which is bordered, I'm not sure directionally, but one side is France, and of course, the other side is Switzerland. So, I mean, to swim in that body of water was just an amazing experience just by itself. And then just being a part of the culture, just meeting athletes from all over the
The
world.
world. Yeah.
I mean, that in itself, having all these teams from different countries and different ethnic backgrounds, and having the opportunity to meet people and trade gear. People like to switch T-shirts and whatnot. So, super fun experience. I recommend definitely traveling internationally if you get the
If you
opportunity.
can, yes, yeah. I was in Finland last year for the World Championship,
Oh yeah,
and yeah, that was amazing. I first time in Finland for me, and just like meeting people from all over the world, the first thing, right? And then there's people that you connect with, and you stay in touch with these people.
absolutely.
Uh, yeah, we made a WhatsApp group, like a handful of us, and there's I met this chef from he's originally French, but he lives in Singapore, and yeah, we stay in touch there. Then there's Mickey that he was like the connector of the group. He would like, okay, what's your phone number? Let's put you in this group. And what's your phone number? Ask someone else. And oh, I introduced all these people, and we're all in touch through WhatsApp now. And everyone's probably once a month, like we check on each other. There's this other coach. She's from Danville, like of all over, of all the places that you go to Finland to meet a coach from Danville,
Yeah.
and so we stayed in touch too. So it's been great. That experience was amazing. I met athletes from Argentina, and of course, being Latinos, that like created that bond, and we were both in the same age group. And now I see that I met his wife also, and both of them raced together, and they
Oh yeah.
just did St. George, and like both of them qualified for St. George. So, oh, not qualified because St. George is not a qualifying race, but it was when it was the World Championship.
Right.
But yeah, they just did St. George. I'd have to follow up with them and see how they did, but uh, it's a great experience. Okay, I'm gonna move forward and ask you about your coaching background. How did you get into coaching?
I got into coaching, I think, because I wanted to kind of give back to the sport. I've I enjoyed bringing new athletes into the sport of triathlon. Um, I have more of a passion, I think, for working with first-time athletes than you know, um, intermediate or higher caliber athletes, just because the um, the experience it sometimes is a little more rewarding in my mind. Um, but I seeked out the opportunity to get a credential from USA Triathlon, went to their course, took the course, got all the certifications, and had the opportunity to, um, create a website for my coaching service. And it's been extremely rewarding, as you know personally, when
Yes,
you share the knowledge that you've gained over the years, from not only yourself but just interacting from with other athletes, coaches, and reading and education. So taking an athlete that's never done a triathlon and getting them across the finish line, is it's
that's a
can be
rewarding
emotional,
experience.
whether it's a sprint or a full distance Ironman. So really love the time that I spend working with athletes and teaching them what I know and helping them achieve their goals.
Yes, yeah. definitely like that was it's been an experience also for me to like bring people like almost holding their hand, when they're non-experienced athletes, and yeah, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to eat. This is like the amount of hours that you need to put in. Oh, something hurts. Well, let's back off. So make doesn't all that stuff. It's so and then just put all that together and make them see them cross the finish line. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
What I have done over the last 3 years is in trying to bring more people to the sport, particularly female. I've gone out and sponsored one athlete that hasn't done a triathlon, in addition to myself and some of our sponsors, to give a free entry fee, free coaching, and some of our sponsored gear. So that's been a lot of fun as well.
That's great. That's so how do you I'm going to ask further about this. How do you select the athlete that you're going to sponsor?
We've done a social media um, kind of a blast on Instagram, where we would ask um, for an athlete to describe why they feel like they should be given the opportunity to have this ability to have a kit, have a paid entry fee, and get coached and have some sponsor gear. So we solicit and we look at the responses, and then we make a selection based on that.
Nice, nice. That's I mean, it's a great way to support the sport and to bring people into the sport. I like that idea. Sounds great. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, probably will tag along and do something similar. On I'm actually doing something like that. I have a couple of athletes in Venezuela, and one of them I've been coaching. I take him as my um, like my protege in some kind of way. I give him free coaching in exchange for promotion on social media, right? Like you just post the workouts that we're doing. You post like your training and just tag the coaching business, and in exchange you get free training and guidance up to your next race. So something similar. I do not pay for the race fees or anything like that, or for the uniform, but because it would be too expensive just to send it to
Yeah.
Venezuela. So, but like he did create his own version of the uniform, which was very similar to the kit that I carry for my team here.
Oh,
It's a
that's
great
great.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Moving to our next or to my next question that I have for you, like, what are mistakes that you see triathletes making in their training in these days?
Well, one that I was guilty of myself, I think, before I learned a little bit more about coaching, was would be overtraining. Um, I think that's instinctual for people to, um, they think more is better, which in actuality is not. Um, when Before I got my coaching credential, when I would go out to train, if I felt good, whether it was on a swim, a bike ride, or a training run, um, I would just kind of increase the effort, or make it a hard training ride or run or swim. And I never really afforded myself the opportunity to have a rest day. So I was always kind of going out and training hard because I felt good. And that's okay to a point, but if if you don't follow a structure of training blocks and recovery weeks, you're going to reach a point and plateau and fatigue and burnout, and that could be a problem. So,
Probably get injured.
and definitely get injured. So,
Yes.
that's a mistake for sure. And then one that we touched on earlier was, jumping in to a full distance triathlon from zero experience.
Yes. Yeah. That definitely can hurt. And I mean, you might not even make it through the first 3 months if you try to do that of training, and thinking about like how much, like I'm signed up for Ironman Arizona, and we're 7 months away from Ironman Arizona. And as you know, like I recently had my heart ablation, and like I'm gun shy now. Like I'm slowly introducing the three disciplines. I've been running consistently. My longest run so far since October has been 6.5 miles. And I'm training for Ironman now. Like I gotta turn on the switch.
Yeah.
So with all this, I just want to say, um, 6 7 months to go into Ironman training, or to get ready for an Ironman race, and you come from zero, and you probably start training 3 4 months before that, and you're going to increase the mileage so quickly. You're definitely going into a dangerous path there, or a tricky path. um, Talking about injuries, I know, I don't know if you want to share about this, or if it's too personal, just say no, I don't want to share about it. But I think you did share some of it on social media about your hip injuries. And now, how long was this ago? And now you're racing again, right?
Yeah,
So it's a comeback story. I want to hear about it.
it is a little bit of a comeback story. Yeah, just to circle back to injuries and when somebody's training for a long distance, it almost becomes a management of injury prevention than anything else for people, right?
Right.
I mean, when you start from no experience in triathlon and you try and launch yourself into a full distance Ironman, it becomes managing injury prevention. So, my situation, I wasn't necessarily a body type that could handle a lot of long distance running. So I had a propensity to injury. Plantar fasciitis I dealt with for almost 3 years. I had a couple of stress fractures back in the day, and then our family has a bit of a history with arthritis. So my hips, um, my natural born hips lasted me about 60, 60 years.
Okay.
Um, so I had a full left hip replacement in 2020.
Okay.
Um, and that was successful. It allowed me to, and again, I'm primarily doing sprint distance triathlons. That's
Okay.
more or less my specialty and my strength. Um, so I was able to get back to riding my Zwift stationary bike after about 4 to 6 weeks, based on the recommendation from my orthopedic surgeon. Allowed me to just start some easy cycling. And so from there, I just progressed gingerly into a little bit of swimming when I could get back in the water, when the incision was healed fully.
Yes. Yeah.
I did my um, religious physical therapy.
Yes.
And,
Religious being a key word there, like
yeah,
consistent. Yeah. This the secret is that you got to show up to physical therapy
yeah.
after these things. Yeah.
And you
Sorry
have
to
to
interrupt.
maintain it at
Yeah.
home as well, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it afforded me to get back and do my first race actually 8 months later after having the surgery. Um, and I did 3 races that year and was in another position to where my right hip was giving me some pain. Um, I put off the surgery on the left hip for probably 3 years until
Wow.
I had
Okay.
the opportunity, number one, to find the right doctor, to make sure I had the right insurance and coverage, and I could take the time off of work to rehab myself. So a 3-year process to find the right doctor for hip surgery and replacement number one. And then in the same calendar year, I had the right hip fully replaced. And
Okay. Wow.
so
Okay.
here we are, almost 2 years, hence hip number two, and I'm, you know, back racing, training, and but monitoring my running durations so that I don't have a problem, down the line.
Right. Are you doing any strength training? Do you incorporate strength training into your program?
Definitely strength training. I think that's a discipline that is overlooked just based on most people's time constraint for the sport. But I find that if I need to miss a discipline, swim, bike, or run, if I can get a strength training workout in, it seems to cover the gap pretty well.
Yes. Yeah. A good strength training session. Yeah, will definitely and pay back. Well, it's putting money in the bank with a strength training routine. Yeah. How old are you, Mark? If you
August
it's okay.
5th, August 5th, I'll be 65.
There you go.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah. So and you're still training and racing. I love that. And you've been in the sport since 1980. So it's a great story, to hear this. And after two hip replacements, and like it makes me think like this year I've been I don't want to share this, but I guess now that I just put my foot in the water, I've been considering retiring, because of my atrial fibrillation. And like I don't know, like I started doing yoga immediately after, the doctor said, like, you need to get an ablation. I'm like, well, triathlon takes a long time, a lot of time from your calendar, from your week. Like a lot of you have to train, and you have to work, and you have to train again if you want to be competitive, because we have that competitive nature in us
yeah,
as being all this time in the sport. And I have nothing less than Ironman Arizona at the end of a year. So it's like, if I survive this race, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Will I keep racing? I need to do other smaller races before Ironman Arizona comes in, because I feel like I've always felt like I have to do other races before a big race, like
yeah,
just to make sure to get the cobwebs off. Like make sure that I get back into rhythm. Like you got to rehearse. You got to
yes,
rehearse before the big dance. So anyway, I have mixed feelings, and now everyone knows that I've been considering retiring. But let's see how the rest of a year goes. And definitely, like hearing your story motivates me to probably go in a different direction. And when I turn 65, I'll probably be telling the same story that you're telling right now. So anyway, okay, enough about me, and we're getting close to wrapping up this. Um, like to like give me one more tip on how you stay up to date, right, with triathlon, and with the research and the new trends. Like what do you do? Do you read? Do you listen to podcasts? Like what's your go-to source?
Well, just to summarize where you're coming from real quickly, I think in order to fit this sport into your lifestyle, or at least mine, with work discipline and a family, and being considerate of my wife and her needs, I mean, there's things on the calendar that she wants to do, right? So, um, doing the sprint distance triathlons allows me to stay healthy, maintain my fitness, um, get my work responsibilities done, have time for my wife and my family. So, you can get by on anywhere from, 5 to 8 to 10 hours of training doing sprint races. So, it doesn't consume everything that,
And you're a podium finisher. So
most of the time. Most of
yeah,
the time.
which is great.
Um,
Yeah.
but I enjoy reading articles on triathlon, just learning more about how to become more efficient and effective with less training, because there's really the ability to less is more sometimes in this sport. And if you can maximize your training benefit and minimize the investment, you'll have some more time for other things. So I'll watch YouTube videos, I'll do a lot of reading, um, and I'll stay up to date that way. And just conversing with athletes at races and coaches, I mean, you can always learn something. I mean, I'll attend I um, a pre-race meeting, a packet pickup. I can always learn something. I mean, you know, somebody's always got a new trick or a hint or a caveat that you can learn from, for sure.
Definitely. Being present in the sport, it's a great opportunity to network and learn, get that knowledge that's necessary for us to, as coaches, stay up to date. Um, all right. So, well, with that last comment, I want to ask you. You mentioned that you read. Do you have any book recommendations? I always like to ask this at the end of the interviews. Any book recommendations for me and for our listeners?
I tend not to necessarily pick up and read books. I'm more of an article reader.
Okay.
So
Or any podcast or any YouTube creator that we should look for?
Peter Attia,
Okay, Atia. Atia, I'm gonna
Attia,
correct you on that. Sorry about that.
yes,
Yeah, Peter
yeah,
Atia. Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
very knowledgeable, great content.
Okay. Is this his podcast that you're listening to, or like a YouTube a channel?
Yes, his podcasts.
His podcast. Okay. Okay. I just finished his book, the Outlive. Okay, which I definitely recommend. You can listen to it on. I'm not making any promotions here, or not advertising, but his book Outlive is on Spotify. I
Okay.
listen to it. I like to read, and I like to underline and bookmark and take notes when I read. So I listen to it on Spotify, and I also like bought the hard version. So or, yeah, hardcover version, so I could like take notes. Um, but yeah, Peter Attia Outlive. It's I probably mentioned it already like 4 times on the podcast in the previous episodes. But yeah, and definitely he's a big source of knowledge, and he's an athlete also. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Mark. If you want to say anything else before we close this.
Um, yeah, just wanted to thank you for having me on the show, and enjoyed getting to meet you over the years through the sport, right?
Yes. Yeah.
great connection. You've been a good source of information for me, so I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with me when I give you a call or shoot you a text. So it's been
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
I'm happy to yeah, that we connected. I don't even remember how we connected, but yeah, it's like it's one of those things that happen in a race or something, and then we like this there's a click, and there's definitely some feedback that can go back and forth.
Yeah.
um where our listeners, where can they find you? Your company is called Tri Coach, Mark. You have an Instagram account with the same handle, Tri Coach Mark.
Yes. Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook, and website.
Okay, perfect.
Try Coach.
So, try Coach Mark out of Temecula in Southern California, legend of the sport. I mean, raised and not raised, but like grassroots in the sport, in the mecca of the sport in that time in San Diego. So, definitely lots of experience and knowledge there. Thank you again, Mark, for being with us. I'm going to close this saying thank you to our listeners. Thank you for joining the APX podcast today. I usually forget to thank our friend, the sound editor, Martin Carmona. Okay, very good friend through the years, and he's helping me. Thanks to him, this podcast is being possible. Also, all right. Thank you, Mark, again, and everyone else. Until next time.